Well, good evening. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes. So good to be here with you all. My name is Michael Tubbs, and I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. And as was mentioned before running for Lieutenant Governor, before serving mayor for 4 years in Stockton, California, elected the same day Donald Trump was elected the first time. Yeah, tough. It was tough. Was the mayor during COVID, was the mayor during the Black Lives Matter protest. My first month in office, I spent meeting with ICE officials because Trump wasn't planning on invading Stockton because of our sanctuary city stance. Before serving on city council, I was elected to city council at 21 years old. The year Stockton declared bankruptcy. So I spent 4 years as chair of the audit committee, helping the city rebound from bankruptcy. But before all that, as mentioned in the bio, I was born in Stockton, California, in close proximity to many of the issues I'm motivated to working with you all to help solve in the state today. As was mentioned, my mom was 16 when she had me, and my father is still incarcerated. I'm 35 years old, which means he's been incarcerated for 35 years. But my mom, my aunt, and grandmother, like many of the strong women in this room, taught me some values that have been fundamental to my life. They taught me, number one, that I wasn't better than anyone, but that no one was better than me. That everywhere I went, I belonged, that I had something to offer. And they also taught me, even though they weren't incredibly political, that if I wanted something to change, if something needed to be changed, I couldn't wait for someone else to do it. The cavalry wasn't coming. If you want to do it, if it has to change, you have to do it. And it's those values that guided me to be the first one in my family to graduate from college at Stanford University. And at Stanford, it was incredible because I realized that, sure, there's some very intelligent people I went to school with, but they weren't much more intelligent than the intelligent people I grew up with in Stockton. And in fact, the biggest differentiator wasn't effort and it wasn't ability. It was opportunities and resources. And that's what kind of shaped my governing philosophy, this idea that it does matter how and where the government invests, that talent and intellect can be found anywhere in this state, but resources and opportunities oftentimes aren't. During my junior year in college, I interned in the White House under President Obama. And while there, I worked with mayors and councils nationwide. And I hated it. I thought it was the most boring job of all time. I went to the Domestic Policy Council doing education policy. But there I realized it actually mattered who was in the mayor's seat. At the time, Senator Booker, was mayor of Newark. And Newark, New Jersey was getting a crazy amount of attention. Not because something special about the city, but because it mattered that Cory Booker was the mayor there and we wanted to help him. And I remember writing my first memo for a meeting with President Obama and Cory Booker, and I realized that Newark, New Jersey was a city of 300,000 people. And Stockton, California was a city of 310,000 people. And I was like, oh my gosh, Stockton is more people than this city, Newark, that I hear about every single day. Maybe leadership matters. Maybe who's in the seat actually matters to get things done. Longer story short, while there, one of my cousins was a victim of a homicide in Stockton on Halloween. And it was actually that moment that led me to run for office. It was really the anger, the pain, and the question, was this the best we can do? At that time, this is 2011, Stockton per capita led the nation in homicides. Meaning that the tragedy of my cousin was horrific, but it wasn't that abnormal. It was actually almost a rite of passage for so many people in the community. So I decided to run for office. And I took the long way to get to the point of this conversation to let you guys know a little bit about what motivates me, what drives me, and why I decided to run for Lieutenant Governor at a very interesting time in California and in this country's history. And I'm running for Lieutenant Governor first and foremost because I do think it matters who's in office. I don't think that all Democrats are created equal. I don't think the same person in the same seat produces the same results. And I know that because I have receipts from my time in Stockton. When I was a part-time city council member in Stockton with no staff, we closed down problem liquor stores. We opened up the first bank in 50 years. We modeled community policing. We put body cameras on officers. And this was all between 2012 and 2014. That's before I knew anything. I was just straight out of college. This is my first job. Was helping Stockton become rich crazy. I don't know why they did that. But hey, thankful for the opportunity. And then when I was mayor of a city with 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats facing a budget crisis. facing a time where we knew we had to raise revenue, but we also couldn't just ask for more money without doing our part to illustrate to the public that we're going to spend the money the right way, that we had learned some things from the bankruptcy. I was the mayor that had to say no. When my friends came up, when folks came up with great program ideas, or it was time to get into tough negotiations, I was the guy that had to say, no, we can't do that right now. Or no, we can't spend one-time money on ongoing things. Or no, we can't spend this today, but maybe in 4 or 5 years, we'll be able to do more. I was the mayor, and there were 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats in a red county that voted for Donald Trump this past election that got death threats because I said, no, we have to wear masks during COVID. Like, no, we're not going to be a sanctuary city or county for whatever that means for businesses. Like, we're actually going to follow public science and public health, even if it costs me some popularity, even if it costs me some hits. I was the mayor that took Stockton from bankruptcy to, when I left, the second most fiscally healthy city in the state. And that didn't just happen. It took leadership and hard choices. I mentioned the murder of my cousin. When I was mayor, we reduced homicides by 40%. In fact, the safest years in Stockton this millennium, since 2000, were the years 2018 and 2019. And that's because I used data. I said, well, who's committing the crimes we hear about? Who's driving the murders? And instead of 320,000 people, is it 300,000 people? Turns out it wasn't. It was 84 people. And these 84 people weren't mysteries to us. They were all on probation and parole. They all had been arrested on average 6 times. They were people we knew actually too well, but yet the tools we had weren't doing enough to create the safety we wanted. So against the objections of our police union, against the objections of my city manager, against the objections of actually a lot of people. Like we're going through the list, that's a lot of people. We said, well, how about we beef up not just law enforcement, which we have, but what if we beefed up the preventative mechanisms? What if we beefed up like what the data says work, like focused deterrence, like credible messaging, like saying very clearly jails will exist, but also if you're going to change, opportunities will exist, and the opportunities are as real as other jails are. And again, not everyone took advantage of the opportunity. Not everyone magically changed their life because it's hard to do. But enough did, so we went from 71 homicides to 33. And then the next year we were at 33 again, which was huge in Stockton because that's the only 2 years again since 2000, where we had back-to-back years of record homicides. And then in 2020, we had a 17-year crime low despite the craziness of COVID. And I share all these stories because I think California, the next lieutenant governor, has to be someone that has led and delivered. Like in this moment, every poll, every consultant, every ad person will tell you, all you gotta do is say Donald Trump, and people are with you. Say Donald Trump's bad, woo, red meat, everyone gets on their feet, we're in trouble. Resistance, woo, and I submit to you, we deserve more. And I submit to you in California, Donald Trump isn't the reason why we're tied with Louisiana for the highest poverty rate in this country. Terrible guy. We have to fight him. He didn't do that though. Donald Trump isn't the reason why the cost of housing is 3 times more today than it was in 1990 when I was born, even when you adjust for inflation. He's a bad guy, terrible guy. We have to fight him, but he didn't do that. Donald Trump isn't the reason why that at every single UC or CSU or community college campus, you'll find students and faculty who are sleeping in cars, who are couch surfing, who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Donald Trump is bad. We have to fight and resist him, but Donald Trump didn't do that. So I'm running for lieutenant governor because I think California, you need someone who's not afraid to fight against Donald Trump, who's not afraid to call out the craziness and words escape me, whatever this is happening, but also has that same energy for calling out that same level of negligence, that same level of incompetence, that same level of not delivery, even here at home. That no one's spared, because I think it matters who's in government. I think it matters what government does. I think government has a role to play in at least creating a space where folks can reach their full potential. So in terms of what the lieutenant governor can do, number one, The lieutenant governor sits on the UC, CSU, and community college boards. And those are big educational institutions, obviously, but they're also huge landowners. So when we talk about the housing crisis, when we talk about the student housing crisis, the UC, CSU, and community college systems all own land, and they can all build by right. They don't have to go through the same entitlement processes. They don't have to go through the same planning commission meetings. They don't have to go through the same levers that other types of developments have to go through. And then the question becomes, like, why haven't they built the housing when there's actually a need for student housing? And I submit to you, it's a question of leadership. That oftentimes, folks who are on the border regions at the UC, CSU, or community college level are just really happy to be there. A lot of them are like big donors or nice people who are just happy to be in the room where they talk about what's happening at the UC or CSU. I'm not that person. I'm usually not, if I'm in a room, it's usually because I'm not happy. If I'm in a meeting, it's usually because I want something to change. I'm not there to be there. I'd rather be home. But because there is a student housing crisis and a worker housing crisis, I think as Lieutenant Governor, that's an incredibly leverage to get those systems to do what needs to happen. Number two, I was just with some students at CSU San Bernardino, and I read this, but hearing the young people say it was different, where every year there's a 5% tuition increase. Every year. And I said, because I'm not to keep things simple, I'm like, well, how do you pay for that? Like, do you budget for that? And deadpan, I just get another job. Huh? Yes, I just get another job. Like, but you get more time? Like how does that work? And we have folks up and down the state, like young people who are sold this idea that you do everything right, you go to a UC or CSU, you don't pay, and it's just not true like it was maybe when you all went to UCs or CSUs. So a big part of running is to make that argument true again, that California's best days weren't yesterday, but they actually can be ahead if we do the hard things like say, hey, no tuition increases. And then do the hard thing of saying, hey, let's find out ways to get the revenue to offset that, whether it's capping administrator salaries, whether it's looking at bloat in the system, whether it's focusing on student outcomes and student learning first and everything else second, whatever it takes to make sure that folks can afford to go to the UC, CSU community college system. And that's personal to me because when I was mayor of Stockton, I raised over $20 million. So to this day, every single young person who graduates from a public school in Stockton is guaranteed a trade school 2-year or 4-year scholarship, making opportunity real for folks. Secondly, the Lieutenant Governor sits on the State Lands Commission. As the name says, it's the caretaker of the land that the state owns. So when you talk about saying that to Donald Trump, the State Lands Commission is a place, in addition to the UC, CSU community college system, to protect your free speech, right to protest, all those things, that the Lieutenant Governor can actually do some of that, particularly as it pertains to offshore drilling in our coastlines. As the State Lands Commissioner, I think, to keep things simple, no, is the answer. When offshore drilling permits expire and they come up for renewal, the answer is no. Like, just keep it simple. But also, when you think of the State Lands Commission, there's a number between 0 and all where there's land that's suitable for development. Where there's places, not every place, but also not no place. There's some place where we should be able to build the housing that California so desperately needs. So as State Lands Commissioner, that's what I will do is say, hey, let's audit all of our land. Some of it should not be developed, for sure. Some of it could be developed. So let's figure out if it's 1 parcel, 2 parcels, like where can we develop the housing that Californians need? Because again, we're in a housing crisis. Again, we're a 1 million homes short, and that number gets bigger every year. And people keep talking about it, but talking about it's not going to build more homes. Talking about it's not going to lower the cost of rent. Talking about is not going to lower the amount of people who are homeless in California. Talking about it isn't actually going to let your children and your children's children afford to live in California. Because what really bothers me is this fact that we talk about how we're a great state, Golden State, side of resistance, but why is it that the highest group of folks leaving California aren't billionaires? It's working people. It's people making 80, 70, 60K. It's recent college grads. And where are they going? They're going to red states. They're going to Texas. They're going to Florida. They're going to places where they're going to Georgia. They're going to places where they can afford to live, even if they have Republicans in power. And that's a proud Democrat. And as a Californian, I take issue with that. And I think the best way, as I conclude, to fight against Donald Trump is actually to illustrate that these values work, that liberal government works, that a government that works for everyone can actually work, that this idea of sharing the wealth, this idea of providing real opportunity, this idea of giving everyone a shot, even the kid from South Stockton to Lee, actually works in terms of delivering a country and a state where not folks have everything given to them, but at least don't have opportunity taken from them. At least don't have their future mortgaged for wars in foreign countries. At least gives everyone a shot to work hard and prove their worth. So as I conclude for questions, I would say that's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. I was just at my grandfather's 80th birthday, and I was closing us out, and I marveled how he's a Vietnam War vet, didn't go to college, just high school, was a butcher at the local Safeway, UFCW worker, and he was able to buy a home in California. Right? and he was able to buy that home and draw equity in that home to invest in his children and his grandchildren. And how so much of the opportunity that I've enjoyed and my mom enjoyed, particularly as a single mother, was because he had something to draw from. Or my grandmother, who's from Bakersfield, who worked as an eligibility worker for the county for 30 years, was never rich, but had a good job with a pension, and now even as she's retired, she's still able to provide for herself. She's still able to make sure all the bills are paid. She's still able to have some dignity. And the fact that that's what California was about, like a place that was open for everyone, where one job was enough to survive, where you could work hard and own a home if you wanted to do so. And to get back to that promise, California, it's going to take more than rhetoric. It's going to take more than hating Donald Trump. It's going to take real work. So I'm running because I am first in line to hate Donald Trump. That's easy. Terrible, bad, all the words. But I'm also first in line to saying I also hate the fact that no one in my generation can afford a house. I also hate the fact that we're tied with Louisiana for the highest poverty rate. I also hate the fact that we spent $24 billion in homelessness as a state, yet the state auditor says we don't know the outcomes. $24 billion? I'm cheap, so $24 is a lot. Like, you don't know what you do with that money? Anyway, I hate the fact that so much of the narrative of California is about where we've been versus where we're going. And again, that's why I'm running, to make sure that California has a future where technology is harnessed for the benefit of all. A future where everyone pays their fair share. A California where our public schools are funded. And everyone has access to clean water. Really, just truly a California that lives up to its promise and lives up to what we say to the rest of the world. That we're the golden state, that we're the fourth largest economy in the world, but the fourth largest economy of the world, not for the few, but for the many, where we all benefit and we all have a higher quality of living and are able to live with dignity. So if you believe in that vision for California, would love to have your support in my race for Lieutenant Governor. And again, my name is Michael Tubbs, running for Lieutenant Governor, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, all right. While everybody is writing their questions, let me ask you. Where are you?
I'm right here.
Do you have a good?
Stay put.
Do you have a good President Obama story?
Yeah. Oh man, several.
Talk to us. Tell us.
So the best President Obama story. Well, there's two. I'll be quick. The first one, I was it's my first week in the White House, and one of his staffers that I didn't work for. When I was an intern, I was everyone's intern somehow, so I worked for everyone. So he said, Tubbs, come here. So I leave my job to go to him. And President Obama comes in the hallway, and he just throws all his papers at me and goes talk to the president. So I'm awkwardly in the West Wing like this, hoping the Secret Service will tackle me because I was here. And then Obama saw that, and he looked past him and said, young man, come here. And he spoke with me for like 5 minutes. And he had a speech like he was doing right after. But like I was the most important person in the room. And I think he was teaching his staffer like you treat everyone with respect. Like, you know me, he doesn't know me, introduce me. Like he literally left the staff room and was like, young man, who are you? Where are you from? Where you go to school? And he was like, thank you for your service. And that really just taught me, even then, what it meant to be a leader, that you don't just talk to the people in the room who are important, you talk to everyone in the room, and particularly the people who aren't being talked to, you bring them in. And my second Obama story was, after that, I was on the Freedom Ride reenactment with some of the original Freedom Riders. And we went through every stop where the Freedom Bus stopped at. And one Freedom Rider, his name was Bob Singleton, he looked at me and he said, I was arrested on August 4th, 1961. Why was that day important? And I thought he was fishing for a compliment. So I said, well, thank you for your service, man. If it wasn't for you, no bus for me. And then he said, on that day, Barack Obama was born. And he said he had no idea the choice he made to stand up and do something would pave the way for a child born with no opportunity to have the shot to be president. So that's like a story that sticks with me. And then he said, what are you prepared to do today so that 50 years later, a child has more opportunity? And that's sort of my guiding question every day. It's like, okay, well, what am I doing today so that 50 years later, California and this country looks a little bit better? So those are my two Obama stories.
Oh, I love that. Nice. Really nice stories. Thank you, Michael. Okay, all right. I know that one of your accomplishments was implementing the Guaranteed Basic Income in Stockton. Now, I understand that the funds from that came from a federal grant, which I think expired in 2016 or something. Or did you get funding from private people? Did you get grants? How did you do it? And do you expect that you will be able to implement that statewide?
So when I did the program in Stockton, I announced it in 2017. So for context, this is before Andrew Yang was even running for president. Me and him are good friends. We're like, bro, I was already doing it. We were talking about it. But so this is early on. And because of that, we were able to raise philanthropic funds. So we raised $3 million from foundations and other folks to kind of test the idea, because the idea was novel. And then when we did it, a year later, COVID happened. So in fact, Trump's Treasury Department called my staff in Stockton to see how was it going, as they were thinking about stimulus checks and the child tax credit. So we gave them, like, this is what we're seeing, this is how the results are. And then since then, there's been over 80 guaranteed income pilots across this country, of over 10,000 residents, and over $335 million. Most of that money was COVID relief dollars. But now, to this day, I started a group called Marriage for Guaranteed Income that works with folks around the country. And the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts has a guaranteed income program for single mothers that's funded from the general fund. Cook County in Chicago has a guaranteed income program funded by cannabis revenue. A couple state of Michigan has a guaranteed income program, $500 million for pregnant mothers for the 9 months of pregnancy and 1 year after birth. So now we're looking at, that was more publicly financed program. And to answer the second part of your question, for any real guaranteed income program, it would be sort of like the stimulus checks or the child tax credit. It would have to be a federal policy, because the federal government can deficit spend. Like the $1 billion we're spending a day in their own. Like for half that price, you could make sure everyone here eats. But the inability to do everything doesn't give us an excuse to do nothing. So in California, there's a bunch of ways we should get to a guaranteed income. Number one, we could do a guaranteed income for every foster youth who aged out the foster care system. Because 50% of all the folks who are homeless in our streets were once foster youth. A majority of the young girls being trafficked in our state, foster youth. And what's criminal about that is that we said those are our kids. We took them from their families and said, we're going to take care of them. And what happens, we do an okay job when they're 18, it's like, done. So a guaranteed income would cost $20 million for every single foster youth a year. It would give them a launch pad to their adulthood, which would be huge. Number two, and this is going to be, and please, you can cut me off after this. And then number two, I'm a bit of a nerd, but as we think about AI, think about all the wealth that's being created by these LLM models, I'm a big proponent that we should own our data. That there should be some sort of data dividend or some sort of value capture where the data we own, what we like, what we search, how we engage on social media, because that's how they're profitable. They're not profitable because they're answering questions. They're profitable because they know what questions we ask. They're not profitable because they make those funny drawings of what we look like 30 years ago or 30 years in the future. They're profitable because we ask those questions. Like it's our data, it's our input, it's our human creativity that gives us things value. So long answer, but I think we should own some of that. If we do that, whether it's a data dividend or a value capture, then there could be like a universal basic capital, right? So I think it should be equity stakes in these companies. So as they get more valuable compelled, we all get more valuable and compound. So I'm working very hard on that. And then lastly, it's more of a moonshine idea, but I do think, particularly given the debate we're having about the billionaire tax, a good, not compromise, I think a good way to get some consensus is saying, hey, what if we create a California like sovereign wealth fund where like Alaska, they have a permanent dividend based off their like oil. And in California, our oil is tech, it's innovation, it's these crazy valuations and things. So what if every startup in California put in 0.5%, 0.3%, some percent of equity early on into like a fund, and then when these things get big and blow up, then the state has some benefits. And so the state's able to invest in infrastructure and education and things that benefit all of us because they're valuable, and they're in California because of what our tax dollars support, because of our university systems, because of our roads, because of the pockets of innovation we create. So, long answer to say yes.
So let me ask you about that last part. So are you suggesting that the tech companies put in some funding? So are we taxing the rich, or are we taking a part of the technology companies and making them statified?
Yeah, no, I think it's both, right? I think the idea is, given all the problems in California, given all the immense resources we have in disparity, everyone has to pay their fair share. And it feels smart to me in a way for everyone to feel part of the team, so it's not punitive. Because I think so much of the narrative, intentional or not, is that folks feel like they're being penalized for being successful. It's like, no, we're talking about we're a team. We are a family. So because you benefited from the university system for your workers, because you benefited from sort of the infrastructure we created that makes Silicon Valley what it is, everyone should have some skin in the game and put something in. And I think doing so in that way will create more of a, less of an adversarial relationship, because I'm just not sure that even just the narrative of California being punitive, like wealth inequality is bad, but every wealthy person isn't bad. Many are. Epstein files, I get it. But every single person, wealth inequality 100% is bad. Like vast discrepancy between rich and poor is bad, and that should be the focus. And I guess the short answer is, I'm much more interested in like structural changes than individual like changes. Because like, okay, if we do a tax for 5 years, what happens 50 years from now, 20 years from now? But if we are really thinking about how do you change the structure in California so we're constantly capturing value, and that the folks who we're capturing the most value for are incentivized to stay in that lead, I think that everyone's happier and we get more money, we're able to do more good things for more people.
Okay. You've given this a lot of thought, I can tell.
That's because everyone's asking, let me think about this thing. Right?
Okay, all right. Governor Gavin Newsom recently stated on a CNN interview that the Democratic Party needs to be more culturally normal to win over voters, arguing that the party should focus less on identity politics and more on tabletop economic issues. What you think?
Yeah. What does that mean? Like the only people that talk about identity politics are Republicans. Like I've never been at like a Democratic function and it's like talking about like taking from women or taking from immigrants or hating trans. Like Democrats don't talk about that. Like if we talk about it, it's a response like some crazy conservative attack. So I agree with the governor that we should focus on the issues are facing folks every day. I think my disagreement would be a lot of those issues aren't disconnected from identity. Like ICE isn't invading cities and kidnapping people because they're poor. They're kidnapping them because they're immigrant and they're brown, black, etc. That's an identity. That's identity issues. The right to choose isn't being attacked because that's an attack not on women for what they make, but attack on them for being women, attacking their bodily autonomy. So I think that, and maybe this comes from being a minority, where so much of my experience is shaped by like everyone's identity. So I don't know what identity politics means. Like Trump's whole campaign was identity politics. It was, hey, these immigrants, these black people, these other folks are taken from you. Let's make America great. Like, that's identity politics. So I think what we should do as Democrats is be smart and be proud of the fact we're the one party that welcomes all identities. That's a good thing in democracy. The more people on your side, the better. So we should be like, yes, we love your identities. We love the fact that we're not all the same. And we also realize that because we're not all the same, we should make sure government treats us all the same, right? That seems like a very simple concept, and I wish we embraced that more. Like, no, we're a big tent party. We welcome all identities, and our job is to make sure government, despite folks' individual differences, treats everyone the same. That everyone has the same shot. That our government is fair, and I think that's probably what the government was suggesting. But yeah, I just don't understand how you have politics without identity. Like, what would that be? Like buildings? I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's stay on Newsom for a second.
Man.
Question
Love
here.
you, Gavin, if you're watching. You're my guy.
It seems like the cap is on. Do you think Newsom is approaching the campaign for president correctly?
If I knew the answer to that, I wouldn't be ready for lieutenant governor. I'd be ready for president. Right? I think that I have been inspired, probably like many of you, by the ways in which he's not afraid to engage this administration. Even before this, like when he was debating Ron DeSantis, I thought that was good too. I think oftentimes, like, because no one's perfect, we'll always have things to work on. But our lack of perfection should not make us scared to talk about what we're doing well. It should not make us scared of punching back. So I think he's illustrating to all of us how to sort of fight back to this bullying and this craziness. And I think so we'll see this legislative cycle, but if there's more proposals around easing the affordability crisis in California, if he continues to work to deliver on those things, then for sure I think he'll have a compelling case to be the next president if he chooses to run.
All right. Well, hold on. Time. Really?
Time flies when you're having fun, guys.
Keep question? Okay, yeah, gotcha. Okay, we need to move on. Okay, all right. Okay, there are a pass-a-load of people running for governor. Do you have a choice? What are you thinking about the candidates?
Yeah, no, I know we're short on time, so I don't have time to answer the question. But what I would say is I'm very clear for lieutenant governor, which is important. When the governor is gone, I'm your guy. So Michael Tubbs for lieutenant governor for sure.
How much better could we be from it? Okay. Oil is flowing in Santa Barbara offshore oil rigs despite community protests. Yeah. And Trump just wanted Santa Barbara to start. Yeah. What do you think about oil rig drilling off the coast?
No. And the Attorney General has to support lawsuits defending against that for sure.
All right. What are your thoughts on universal health care for California?
Yes. California, let's go. I mean, it's easy to say yes. It's going to be hard to figure out how to do it, but that shouldn't stop us from trying. It's important. So yes.
All right. California has a huge deficit. The majority in the state reduce spending, opposed to raising income, blah, blah, blah. Taxes on the wealthy. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think we have to do what I did in Stockton, right? Like, there's no way we're going to just be able to cut our way of a multi-billion-dollar deficit. But it's also not fair to taxpayers to say all we're going to do is raise revenue without some accountability measures, like what's the money going to be spent on and how do we track that and make sure that's well. And that's why I'm looking at sort of where can we tighten up? Where can we cut? So I'm not opposed to cuts. I'm just opposed to all cuts. And I am opposed to cuts to social services for the poorest among us. I think everything we see with H.R. 1, the big ugly bill, the folks who have a disability, the folks who are already struggling, the folks who are already the folks who are already struggling are going to struggle more. So it makes no sense for California to compound that pain, right? So we have to cut. I think it matters where. We can't just cut. We have to cut, raise revenue, and then also make sure we're good stewards of our dollars, because we're not going to be able to keep raising our way out either, right? There has to be some balance.
Okay, all right. So we have a lot of tech companies in California. They make a lot of money for us, right? So how do you balance the regulation of AI with keeping the tech companies happy?
Yeah, well, this is why I'm not the most popular person all the time. I don't think the job is to make any, my wife, we fight about this actually often. I don't think my job is to make anyone happy, right? Like, I think like tech companies' happiness is their choice, but I think what my job is to make sure we're being responsible stewards, and government at its best needs to set common sense guardrails. Because we saw what happened with social media when it was unregulated. We're now decades later learning about the mental health impacts, the body changes, the brain chemistry changes, the amount of suicides, like the addiction. Those are bad things. So a smart government learns from that and says, hey, we're not going to stifle innovation, but we do want to mitigate harm. And we do understand it's an iterative thing. Now, we don't have all the answers now, but we have to do something. So I think we have to make common sense AI regulations in conversation with AI folks who actually know the technology, and with labor, and with ethicists, and like a coalition approach to governing and saying, how do we do this? And also knowing it's not a one-time conversation. It's not one law. It's going to be iterative, meaning we're going to have to try things, add to it, subtract, etc. But this idea of just unregulated AI we don't want that in California, sorry.
Okay, alrighty. Wildfires and climate change have forced home insurance rates to skyrocket. How would you work with the new insurance commissioner to alleviate homeowner burden?
Yeah, I'll support whatever the insurance commissioner, when their wisdom and their job and their purview and what they're supposed to do, support what they propose to deal with that, to deal with that crisis. And I know a couple of counties pretty well. A lot of their proposals are interesting. So I think as Lieutenant Governor, the best thing is to be supportive of the folks responsible for that, and also ensure as they make the proposals, that's not just the insurance industry at the table. That there's voters. There's people who are thinking about homeowners and other folks in California who are impacted.
Okay, one more. Who are your biggest funding supporters? I know you have the SEIU lobby union behind you. Yeah. Who else?
Funding supporters? Man, not enough. That's why I'm here. Who wants to sign up? No, we have support from over 2,000 donors across the state of California. Some of our biggest endorsements have been SIU California, but we've also been endorsed by the Working Families Party. We've also been endorsed by the YIMBYs. We've also been endorsed by the Abundance Network. So we have a coalition that spans from the most progressive parts from our party to the most moderate parts of our party. And I think that's what we're going to take to win and also govern. But in terms of donations, according to my finance team, we don't have quite enough, so I'm still working on that. So hopefully next week I'll have an answer. But I think in terms of big donors, we have folks like Liz Simons, a philanthropist, and it's a lot of philanthropy people like Liz Simons, Quinn Delaney, Wayne Jordan, Steve Phillips, big long-standing Democratic donors like Obama, Kamala people, Gavin people.
All right, like you got a bunch. All right, okay.
But looking for more.
We're out of time. Michael, good luck.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been a fan since I first heard him speak, and I was very upset that our AV wasn't functioning properly, not this one, but another one, and we couldn't highlight Chris enough on our website and on our village television. So I'm very happy to have Chris here. Now, I first heard about Chris Kluwe when he committed an act of civil disobedience at the Huntington Beach City Council meeting, protesting the placement of a MAGA plaque on the public library. The protest got him arrested, and it cost him his teaching job at Edison High School. All of this, as I understand it, ultimately led him to run to represent Laguna Woods and the rest of California Assembly District 72 in the current election. When I'd heard that Chris had been with the NFL, I called my sports nerd son and I said, "Do you know who Chris Kluwe is?" He said, "Yeah, he was a kicker for the Vikings." Of course he knew. Chris is a new politician, but he's not new to activism. Jeff Pearlman has enlightened us a couple of times on his the Truth OC stories about Kluwe, in which he referenced, one of which he referenced a 2014 article that Kluwe himself wrote that is entitled, "I was an NFL player until I was fired by two cowards and a bigot." So this is where he describes everything that led up to his actually being fired from the NFL. And it all had to do with his advocating for justice and fairness by advocating for the freedom of Minnesotans to love whoever they want and marry whoever they chose. One of the quotes in that article I read says, Chris says, "Never be afraid to do what's right. If no one ever says anything, nothing ever changes." Anyone who's willing to put his job on the line for his principles and values has my sincere admiration.
Yes, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'm Chris Kluwe. I have spoken here before. I've met a bunch of you. Looking forward to meeting those of you who I haven't met. I'm running for Assembly District 72 in large part because a lot of you asked me to. So when I first started speaking at Dem Clubs after my arrest in Huntington Beach, every time I talked afterwards, people would come up to me and say, "When are you running for office? We want to donate. We want to canvass for you. We want a phone bank." And after probably, I think, the 6th or 7th time, I was like, maybe I should run for office because I don't really want to be a politician. Like that's never been something where I'm like, I'm going to be the next president of the United States. What I want is for people to leave me alone, and I want my government to work. And unfortunately, right now we are not getting that, right? Our government is not leaving us alone, and it is not working. So we need to fix that. We need to change that. And I'm also not going to ask people to do something I'm not willing to do myself, so much like when I spoke out for LGBTQ rights, when I got arrested for protesting a MAGA plaque. I'm now running for assembly because I want the job to be done properly, and apparently I'm in the position to do it, so I can't just sit around and not do the job. I want someone to represent this district that actually cares about everyone in the district. Even the people that don't vote for me, even the people that might disagree with me. My job is to represent everyone. And so I think it's important that we understand that because my likely opponent, Gracie Vandermark, she does not believe that. I can tell you that for a fact. She's our Huntington Beach City Council member that was behind all the attacks on our public library. And frankly, I don't want her getting more political power because she's hardcore MAGA. She's hung out with known white nationalists. And really, she's just kind of emblematic of what Trump has done to this country. But at the local level, I don't want her moving up to the state level. And I truly believe there's a place for principled conservatism within the American democracy, but MAGA politics is not it. And so we need to rise up as a people and understand this isn't right versus left anymore, it's right versus wrong. And what Trump is doing and the MAGA party is doing is wrong. So we have to stand up and do something against that. So, thank you. So I'm running for assembly. So currently the campaign's going really, really well. Fundraising is going great, although my fundraiser is going to say you can always ask for more. But we're very happy with our current fundraising efforts. We have a ton of endorsements from labor as well as from progressive organizations. I'm not going to list off all of them because I think I'm up to about like 16 or 17 at this point. You can check them out on the website, kluweoc.com, but some notable ones are CTA, which is California Teachers Association, SEIU California. We just got the Labor Fed, the OC Labor Fed. We just got UAW, United Auto Workers, waiting on buildings trades, so I'm hopeful for that one. And then, yeah, there's a whole bunch of other ones that have endorsed me because my goal is to build a broad coalition. And you heard Michael refer to it earlier, right? Like, we need to be building those broad coalitions. We need to be including everyone in our tent. And what he also said that I really agree with is that we're not all going to get along. But we don't have to get along. It's okay for us to get upset at each other and even just not like each other. Like, when I played football, I played with guys who were getting literal fistfights during practice, like full-on throwing punches at each other. But on Sunday, we're all wearing the same jersey, we're all fighting for the same objective, we're all trying to win the game because we're on the same team. And that's what I want us to do at a local level, at a state level and at a national level is I want us to understand that we're all on the same team. We are all Americans. We are all working to provide a better future for our children. We want our families and communities to thrive and prosper. And so to make that happen, we have to work together. And we have to make sure everyone is paying their fair share. I really like Michael's idea for a sovereign wealth fund, by the way. Like that is brilliant. My personal one that I would pie in the sky like to shoot for is the implementation of a maximum wage tied to the minimum wage. I think that would be a really fun way to help balance wealth inequality. Because again, I'm not saying you can't earn more than someone else. All I'm saying is you just got to lift everyone else up with you. Because he wasn't wrong when he talked about addressing the wealth inequality gap. Like we are currently facing the largest wealth inequality gap this country has ever seen. Like it's worse than the Gilded Age. It is literally unprecedented. And if we don't fix that, we know what happens. It leads to societal unrest, it leads to economic depressions, and it leads to the potential collapse of the American experiment in democracy. And I, for one, don't want to see that happen. So in order to fight back against that, we have to be having conversations on how do we make people pay their fair share? How do we make sure that we are providing for everyone? And in California, obviously, we have a massive affordability crisis. And as Michael pointed out, he stole all my lines, but it's okay. We are the 4th largest economy in the world. You hear that all the time. But where is that money concentrated, right? It doesn't feel like it's concentrated in our hands. It feels like it's concentrated in the hands of a few very wealthy individuals and corporations. And again, we need them to pay their fair share. We need them to understand that they have profited off all of our collective action. Therefore, they need to be helping us take care of each other. They don't just get to go off and sail their smaller yacht that fits inside their bigger yacht. Like that's not okay with that. So anyways, that's enough about me yammering on. I much prefer to do Q&A because then I get to have a conversation with people. So I like to leave a lot of time for questions. So if you have questions, please write them down and ask me. And they can be about anything. I was actually just over at Canyon Domes, and I had a guy ask me, how did your experiences with punting, how will that relate to being a legislator? Which I thought was a great question, right? I'm like, I've never gotten that one before. And basically just kind of gave him the same answer that I told you about working together as a team. Because really that's what it is. As a punter, I can't do the same job my gunners do. I can't do the same job my interior blockers do. I can kind of do the same job my long snapper does because I have a lot of free time. But I can't do it at his same level. But at the end of the day, we're all working together. We're all using our own areas of expertise to make sure that the team wins. And so that I felt, was what he was asking. Like, how are you experienced on working on a team? I'm like, I have a lot of experience working on a team. I think working in the legislature is going to be very similar to that. So, all right, questions?
Hi there.
Hello.
Okay, all right. Are you only running against Gracie, or is there a gentleman named Harper?
Yes, Matt Harper is in there as well. We think so. We're under the impression that him and Gracie are going to battle it out, but based on the filing, the finance filing for the last period, Gracie was the top raiser. She raised, I think, right around $27,000 for the filing period. Harper raised, I want to say like $14,000 or $15,000, and they gave himself a $100,000 loan. Gracie gave herself a $50,000 loan. We raised about $150,000, and I only gave myself a $10,000 loan. So I think we're doing okay. But yeah, no, our impression is that Gracie will be the one going through to the general, just because she's also picked up a lot of the elected official endorsements. So it looks like the party's putting their weight behind her.
Even though Harper's more moderate, I think.
Yeah, yes. Harper is a tougher match for me to run against, because Harper can make the argument that he is sane, right? I'm not sure Gracie can make that argument.
Right, okay. All right, you keep mentioning fair share, as did Michael. The question is, how does one know what a fair share is?
Yeah, so and that's why I talked about, creating a maximum wage tied to the minimum wage, right? It's a fair share is everyone has the ability to survive and prosper. I don't think we need to be giving people things, but we need to be providing people with opportunities. And so growing up, I was very fortunate that I had a lot of opportunities that not everyone else did, right? Like my parents were upper middle class, lived in Seal Beach, so a doctor and a chemical engineer. They were able to afford to give me private lessons for sports. I went to a really good public school. I didn't have to worry about hunger or poverty. Like these are all things that everyone should have. Like every kid should have that experience growing up. not enough kids do. Like and that's what I'm talking about. Like, in order to pay our fair share, we have to be providing for our youth and for our future, because if we don't, historically we see what happens, and it's not good for our society. Like a disaffected younger generation means they tap out of the political process, they're not invested in democracy, and they become hopeless about their future, which means they're more likely to go down bad paths. Because if the current system doesn't work for them, well, they're going to try to find something that does. And we've seen that happen in other countries in really bad ways. So I would much prefer to provide for people, give them opportunities, give them hope for the future, and understand that we are investing in ourselves. We're not giving anything away, we are making an investment. So.
Okay, all right. If elected, what would your first priority be, and do you favor the millionaire tax?
Hell yeah! So my first priority is affordability. We have to address the affordability crisis in this state right now. And I am absolutely in favor of the millionaire tax. Like, and that's coming from someone who is, technically, I am a millionaire. Like, I made millions, I think around like $4.5 million playing in the NFL. I invested it long term, it's in mutual funds, and I live moderately. So like I'm not driving a Bentley or anything like that. But I am willing to pay more because I think it's important. Again, like if I want to take advantage of a good California that has solid infrastructure, that has a healthy public school system, that has good health care, I need to pay my fair share in order for that to exist. And I'm not asking anyone to do something I'm not willing to do myself. Like, I'm willing to pay more taxes as a millionaire. I think we should all be paying more taxes as millionaires. And so, yes, I am totally in favor of it.
Okay. Last month, Chris, we had a really good speaker, Shireen Smith, who was a supervisor of the OSHA Board of Education.
Okay.
And she talked about the idea that there are a lot of people backing charter schools that use tax money and are going towards Christian nationalism. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my thoughts are, if you're a private school, you should not get a single penny from public funding. It's fine if you want to make your own school, you got to pay for it yourself. Public schools get all the public funding, and that's the way it should have been, and we have to fight back against this sort of aggressive invasion of charter schools, especially because a lot of them don't want to submit to state oversight, and they don't want to be subject to basic teaching rules. They just want the money that the state gives them. And so a healthy public education system is the backbone of our democracy, and we have to make sure that our money is going to that.
So about 25% of your Assembly District 72 constituency are us, 65 and older. What are you going to do for us?
Bingo night.
Bingo.
No, so really one of the big things is what I've already mentioned is affordability, right? Like, especially older generations, you can't really afford to sell your house and downgrade, because if you pick up a new house that has current market property values, you're going to be paying probably a lot more than you can afford to. So we have to make sure that we have enough housing, that we have ways for people to both move up and move down in terms of the housing that they're able to get. And that means we have to fill it, we have a housing gap, right? Like, we're not building enough condos, we're not building enough townhomes, we're not building enough like mixed-use commercial residential areas so that there are different options available. It's not just split off single-family homes. So that's one of the things where I think it'll affect everyone, but it really does help older people as well, because I'm sure, how many of you have kids in this room? How many of you, raise your hands? Could your kids afford to live in the same neighborhood you do? No, right? And that sucks. You want to be able to see your kids. You want to be able to have them around you when, as they're growing up and after they're grown, and then you can see your grandkids. And so that's what we have to fix. We have to make sure that families are able to survive and thrive and prosper in California. And to do that, we've got to build more houses.
Okay.
And bingo night.
So what do people do if they want to support you?
All right, so if you want to support me, I have some campaign literature over on a table somewhere if it hasn't all gotten taken. There's also a volunteer sign-up form. So if you want to put your name, email, phone number, I can let you know about opportunities to volunteer with the campaign. If you'd like to give me money, that would be fantastic. Because I gotta ask. I wish we had publicly financed elections, so I didn't have to ask. But as things currently stand, I do have to ask. But if you can't, don't worry about it. I would much rather have your time. So if you can afford to volunteer, if you can afford to give me a couple hours, I will gladly take that trade, because that's how I'm going to win. It's by getting people out on the streets, knocking on doors, having conversations, phone banking, talking with people, and to do that, I need your time. So yes, then that's the volunteer form right there with Murray. So please feel free to fill that out if you would like. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, those are kind of the main ways.
All right, well, that's all I got, folks. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.